I never imagined that my dream wedding would turn into a nightmare that would change my life forever. The morning had started perfectly. Sunlight streamed through the Grand Plaza Hotel's tall windows, casting a warm glow on the ballroom's cream-colored roses and lilies. My hands trembled as I adjusted my white lace dress for the final time. My reflection in the mirror was everything I'd dreamed of. A beautiful bride, the picture of happiness. "You look stunning," Lisa whispered, her eyes brimming with tears. Tom is going to be speechless. But as the wedding progressed, a knot of worry grew in my chest. Something was off, and I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. I never imagined that my dream wedding would turn into a nightmare that would change my life forever. The morning had started perfectly, just as I had always envisioned it. The sun streamed through the tall windows of the Grand Plaza Hotel in downtown Chicago, casting a warm golden glow over the cream-colored roses and lilies that filled the ballroom. My hands trembled as I adjusted my white lace dress for the final time. The mirror reflected the image I had dreamed about since I was a little girl, a beautiful bride on her perfect day. My best friend Lisa stood beside me, helping me with my veil. "You look stunning," she whispered, her eyes brimming with tears. "Tom is going to be speechless when he sees you." I smiled, trying to calm the butterflies in my stomach. Everything was perfect. The string quartet played softly in the background, the champagne was chilling, and our 200 guests were starting to arrive. But there was this small knot of worry in my chest, one I couldn't quite shake off. You see, Tom's mother, Karen, had been difficult throughout our entire engagement. She criticized everything, from my choice of venue to the flavor of our wedding cake. "A proper wedding should be in a church," she'd say, "and white roses are so basic." But I brushed it all off, convinced that once the wedding day arrived, she'd finally accept me as part of the family. The ceremony went smoothly. Tom looked so handsome in his black tuxedo, and when he said, "I do," I truly believed this was the beginning of our happily ever after. The problems started during the reception. I was sitting at the main table taking a brief moment to rest my feet from all the dancing when I saw Karen approaching. She was dressed in an expensive navy blue gown that probably cost more than my entire wedding dress, her silver hair perfectly styled, her face already wearing that familiar look of disapproval. The music played, and guests laughed and danced, but somehow, I could hear her heels clicking on the floor, getting louder with each step. That sound seemed to echo in my ears like a countdown to something I couldn't yet understand. "Amy," she said, her voice sharp enough to cut through the joy of the celebration. "Why are you sitting down when there aren't enough chairs for everyone? I've been standing for 20 minutes. I looked around, confused. There were plenty of empty chairs scattered throughout the reception hall, but before I could say anything, I saw Tom walking toward us, his face already clouding with concern. "What's going on here?" he asked, looking between his mother and me. "Your wife," Karen spat the word like it tasted bitter, "is being incredibly disrespectful. She's sitting here like a queen while I've been forced to stand." I started to rise, trying to explain, but Karen's voice grew louder, drawing the attention of nearby guests. "This is exactly what I warned you about, Tom," she said. "She has no respect for family, no proper upbringing." My heart pounded. This was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, but I could feel it slipping away, turning into something completely different. I never expected what happened next. Tom's face changed. The loving look I had seen during our vows vanished, replaced by something cold, distant, and unfamiliar. His mother's words seemed to transform him into someone I didn't recognize. And then, in front of our friends, family, and everyone we knew, he did the unthinkable. The sound came first, a sharp crack that seemed to freeze time. Then came the burning sensation across my cheek, and finally, the realization that Tom, my husband of just 4 hours, had slapped me in front of everyone. The reception hall fell silent. The music kept playing, some upbeat love song that now felt like a cruel joke. My ears were ringing, and I could feel hundreds of eyes on me. Someone gasped, a glass shattered somewhere in the distance. How dare you disrespect my mother like this? Tom's voice was cold and unfamiliar. He stood over me, his hand still raised, his wedding ring catching the light. After everything she's done for us. I touched my cheek, still not quite believing what had just happened. The perfect makeup I'd spent hours on that morning was now stained with tears I hadn't even realized were falling. Lisa, my maid of honor, was the first to move. She rushed toward me, but Karen stepped between us, her face twisted in a triumphant smirk. "Now you see," she announced to the stunned crowd, "what kind of person my son married. No class, no respect." The words hit harder than the slap. I looked around the room, desperately searching for someone, anyone, to stand up for me. My parents had left early due to my dad's health. My sister was on her honeymoon. The faces I saw were a blur of shock, pity, and discomfort, but no one moved. No one spoke. "Tom," I whispered, my voice shaking. "How could you?" But the man looking back at me wasn't the person I'd fallen in love with. His eyes were cold and distant, like a stranger. He straightened his tie, a gesture so normal it seemed bizarre in this nightmare moment. "You brought this on yourself," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "My mother deserves respect. If you can't give her that, maybe we made a mistake today." The string quartet had stopped playing. The only sounds were the hum of the air conditioning and the muffled sobs I was trying desperately to hold back. My white dress felt too tight, too heavy, like it was suffocating me. Then my phone buzzed in my hidden dress pocket, a text from my mother. "Hope you're having the time of your life, sweetie. You deserve all the happiness in the world." The message broke something inside me. I stood up, my legs shaking. The chair scraped against the floor, the sound echoing in the silent hall. Karen stepped closer to Tom, placing her hand on his arm possessively. The diamond bracelet he bought her for Christmas glinted under the chandelier lights. "I need some air," I managed to say, though my voice sounded strange to my ears. As I turned to leave, I heard Karen's voice, sharp and clear. "Drama queen, just like I told you, Tom. She's not good enough for our family." I walked toward the exit, my heels clicking against the marble floor. Each step felt like an eternity. The train of my dress dragged behind me, catching on something, probably Karen's foot, but I kept walking. I couldn't let them see me break down. Not here, not now. Just before I reached the door, I heard the whispers start. The crowd was coming back to life, like a spell had been broken. Someone called my name. Maybe Lisa, maybe one of my cousins, but I couldn't stop, couldn't turn around, couldn't face what my perfect day had become. The cool evening air hit my face as I pushed through the heavy doors. The Chicago skyline sparkled in the distance, indifferent to my world crumbling apart. I had just taken my first steps into a nightmare I never saw coming, and somehow I knew this was only the beginning. I found myself in the hotel's garden, collapsing onto a stone bench hidden behind a row of perfectly trimmed bushes. The music from the reception had started again, the muffled sound of "At Last" drifting through the walls, the song that was supposed to be for our first dance. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing, texts from friends, family, and even guests I barely knew. I turned it off. I couldn't deal with their pity or questions right now. The only person I wanted to talk to was Lisa, and as if on cue, I heard her calling my name. "Oh my God, sweetie." She appeared around the corner carrying my overnight bag and purse. Her mascara was smeared, she'd been crying too. "I grabbed your things. We need to get you out of here." "What's happening in there?" I asked, not sure I wanted to know the answer. Lisa sat beside me, her blue bridesmaid dress crinkling. "Tom's telling everyone you had a panic attack. His mother's playing the concerned mother-in-law, saying she always worried about your mental stability." She grabbed my hand. "Some people are buying it." I let out a laugh that sounded more like a sob. $400 worth of waterproof mascara was no match for this moment. "I married a stranger, didn't I?" "No," Lisa said firmly. "You married a liar. There's a difference, and we're going to deal with this. But not here, not now. My car's out front. As we walked through the hotel's side entrance, I caught a glimpse of myself in a mirror. The bride staring back at me looked like a character from a tragic movie, smeared makeup, red cheek, tears cutting trails through her foundation. The diamond ring on my finger felt like it was burning my skin. Lisa drove us to her apartment across town. Neither of us spoke during the ride. The only sound was the swish of my wedding dress against the car seat and the occasional alert from her phone. Later, she told me Tom had called her 7 times, switching between apologies and threats. It wasn't until we were safely inside her apartment, 2 glasses of wine in hand and the deadbolt securely locked, that I finally let everything come crashing down. "I don't understand," I sobbed, still in my wedding dress curled up on Lisa's couch. "Everything was perfect during our engagement. He was perfect." Lisa handed me a makeup wipe and sat cross-legged on the floor, her bridesmaid dress pooling around her. "Maybe that's exactly what he wanted you to think. Remember when he insisted you move in with him right after the engagement, away from your friends? How he always had an excuse for his mother's behavior? The signs were there," she said. Small things I had dismissed or explained away were suddenly so clear. The way he'd check my phone when he thought I wasn't looking. How he'd grow quiet and distant when I spent time with my friends. His mother's constant demands and his insistence that I just keep the peace. "I have to face them tomorrow," I whispered, the thought making my stomach twist. The brunch, the gift opening, all those people. "No, you don't," Lisa said firmly. She pulled out her laptop. "You're staying here tonight. Tomorrow, we'll get you a good lawyer. I've already called my cousin Rachel. She specializes in domestic violence cases." Domestic violence? The words felt foreign on my tongue. That wasn't me. I wasn't a victim. I was a successful marketing executive who'd graduated top of my class. I was strong, independent. I was Mel. Lisa interrupted my thoughts, her voice gentle but resolute. "He hit you in public on your wedding day in front of witnesses. If he could do that then, what would he do in private?" The truth of her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I looked down at my wedding dress, at the delicate lace I had spent months picking out. Everything it had represented, love, trust, new beginnings, had been shattered in an instant. "What do I do now?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Lisa squeezed my hand. "First, we document everything while it's fresh, the slap, the witnesses, what was said. Then we call Rachel. And then," she managed a small smile, "we get you out of that dress and into some pajamas. One step at a time." As I sat there, letting Lisa help me out of my wedding dress, something shifted. This wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of a new one I never wanted, but had no choice but to face. And somehow, through the tears, shock, and fear, I knew I would survive it. The morning after my wedding day, I woke up on Lisa's couch to 37 missed calls and over 50 text messages. Most were from Tom and his mother, ranging from angry accusations to tearful apologies. But one message caught my eye. It was from Megan, Tom's ex-girlfriend from college. "I saw what happened on social media," her message read. "The same thing happened to me. If you need someone to talk to, or if you need help, please reach out." I sat there, still in Lisa's borrowed pajamas, staring at my phone. A cold, heavy feeling settled in my stomach as pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. Tom had always said Megan was crazy and obsessive. Now I wondered whose version of the story was the truth. Rachel, Lisa's lawyer cousin, arrived at 9 a.m. sharp. She wasn't what I expected: young, wearing jeans and a blazer, with a no-nonsense attitude that made me feel less like a victim and more like someone taking control. "Let's start with the facts," she said, opening her laptop. "You have multiple witnesses to the assault. We have photos from right after." She glanced at my cheek, which had developed a faint bruise. "And based on these texts, he's already trying to gaslight you about what happened." As we talked, more messages started pouring in. Friends sharing videos they'd taken at the wedding, not of the happy moments, but of the incident. Tom's mask had slipped in front of everyone, and people had their phones out. "This is helpful," Rachel said, saving the videos. "But we need more. The physical assault is clear, but I'm more concerned about patterns of controlling behavior. Tell me about your engagement." Over the next 2 hours, I talked about how Tom convinced me to quit my job at a major advertising firm because he made enough for both of us. How Karen would show up unannounced at our apartment and Tom would say I was being selfish if I complained. How my friends gradually stopped inviting me out because Tom always had a reason why I couldn't go. "Plastic isolation tactics," Rachel muttered, typing rapidly. "And financial control, too." Then Megan called. Her voice was shaking as she told her story. 3 years ago, she'd been engaged to Tom. The wedding was called off after he threw a glass at her during their engagement party. Karen had convinced everyone Megan was drunk and making scenes. No one believed her side of the story. "I tried to warn his next girlfriend," Megan said. "But Karen threatened to sue me for defamation. I have all the emails saved." By afternoon, my inbox was flooded with messages from other women. Tom's high school girlfriend, a woman he dated briefly between Megan and me. Even Karen's former daughter-in-law from her second marriage. Each story was different, but the pattern was the same. Control, isolation, public humiliation, and Karen always there, enabling and covering up. "This is bigger than just your case," Rachel said, looking up from her notes. "We're seeing a pattern of abuse across multiple relationships, and his mother, she's not just enabling, she's actively participating." Lisa, who'd been quiet most of the morning, suddenly spoke up. "Remember their family Christmas party? How did Karen keep making those weird comments about your weight, and Tom just laughed?" I nodded slowly. "He said it was just her way of showing she cared, that she was worried about my health." "More like she was testing boundaries," Rachel said. "Seeing how much you'd take, how much she could control." My phone buzzed again. Another text from Tom. "Baby, please come home. Mom feels terrible. We can fix this. Remember our vows for better or worse." I showed Rachel the message. She shook her head. "Classic manipulation. He's trying to use your commitment against you. Don't respond." Instead, I opened Megan's message again and started typing, "I believe you, and I could use your help." By evening, we had a plan. Rachel would file for an emergency restraining order first thing Monday morning. Lisa would help me move my things out of Tom's apartment while he was at work. Megan and 2 other ex-girlfriends agreed to testify about their experiences. "This won't be easy," Rachel warned as she packed up her things. "They're going to fight back hard. Karen has money and connections. Are you ready for that?" I looked down at my wedding ring, then slowly slid it off my finger. The indentation it left behind would fade, just like the bruise on my cheek, but the strength I was finding wouldn't. "I'm ready," I said, not just for me but for Megan and anyone else they might hurt. It's time someone stood up to them. As Rachel left, Lisa ordered pizza and pulled out a bottle of wine. "To new beginnings," she said, raising her glass. "To the truth," I added, thinking of all the women who'd reached out, all the stories finally being told. The sun was setting over Chicago, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Somewhere across town, Tom and Karen were probably planning their next move, but for the first time since the slap, I wasn't afraid. I was angry and ready to fight back. Monday morning came faster than I expected. The bruise on my cheek had turned a yellowish purple, impossible to completely cover with makeup. As I walked into the courthouse with Rachel, I could feel people staring, not just at my face, but at the thick folder of evidence we carried. "Remember," Rachel said as we waited outside the judge's chambers, "stick to the facts. No matter what they say or do, stay calm." We didn't have to wait long to see what she meant. Tom and Karen arrived with their lawyer, a tall man in an expensive suit who looked like he charged more per hour than I used to make in a week. Karen wore all black, like she was at a funeral, dabbing at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. "Amy." Tom stepped toward me, his voice soft and pleading. "Baby, we don't need to do this. Come home. We can work this out. Rachel stepped between us. My client has a restraining order petition. Please maintain your distance. The hearing was brutal. Tom's lawyer painted me as unstable, attention-seeking, a gold digger who'd planned this all along. Karen took the stand, tears flowing perfectly on cue. I just wanted to be a good mother-in-law, she sobbed. I tried so hard to welcome her into our family, but she was always so cold, so disrespectful. Then it was my turn. I walked to the stand, my legs shaking but my voice steady. The videos played on the courtroom screen, the slap, the aftermath, all of it in horrible clarity. I described the isolation, the control, the manipulation. Then Rachel presented her surprise. Megan was there to testify. Tom's face went pale when Megan walked in. Karen's perfectly crafted mask slipped for just a moment, showing the rage beneath. Megan told her story, her voice growing stronger with each word. Then came the emails, the threats, the pattern of abuse that had been hidden for years. Your Honor, Rachel said, this isn't just about one incident at a wedding. This is about a systematic pattern of abuse, enabled and encouraged by the defendant's mother. The judge, a woman in her 60s, looked at the evidence in silence. The room was so quiet I could hear my heartbeat. Finally, she spoke. I'm granting the restraining order, she announced. Furthermore, I'm referring this case to the district attorney's office for review of possible criminal charges. Karen erupted. This is ridiculous. We are a respected family. You can't believe these lies. Mrs. Johnson, the judge's voice cut through Karen's protests. One more outburst and I'll hold you in contempt. Outside the courthouse, reporters were waiting. The videos had gone viral over the weekend, and our story had struck a nerve. Tom and Karen pushed past the cameras, but I stopped. Rachel squeezed my hand supportively. Are you sure about this? She whispered. I nodded. It was time to speak up. My name is Amy Turner, I began, facing the cameras. 3 days ago, I was slapped by my new husband at our wedding for not giving up my chair to his mother. But this isn't just about a chair or a slap. This is about breaking the silence around domestic abuse. The cameras flashed as I continued. To any woman who's been told she's overreacting, who's been made to feel crazy for speaking up, who's been controlled and isolated, you're not alone, and it's not your fault. Lisa and Megan stepped up beside me, then 2 other women who'd been hurt by Tom and Karen. We stood together, stronger than any of us had been alone. The story exploded. By nightfall, it was on every local news channel. Wedding Day Justice started trending on social media. Women began sharing their own stories of abuse and manipulation. What had started as my nightmare was becoming a movement. That evening, as I sat in Lisa's apartment watching the coverage, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Is this Amy Turner? A woman's voice asked. I'm a producer with Good Morning America. We'd like to tell your story. I looked at Megan and Lisa, who were sitting with me. They both nodded encouragingly. Yes, I said, my voice firm. I have a story to tell. The truth was finally coming out, and there was no going back now. The Good Morning America interview changed everything. Sitting there under the bright studio lights, wearing a blue dress Lisa had picked out to show strength, I told my story to millions of viewers. But this time, I wasn't just talking about the slap. It starts small, I explained to the sympathetic host. A comment about your friends here, a suggestion about your job there. Before you know it, your whole world has shrunk to just them and their approval. The segment aired on a Thursday morning. By Thursday afternoon, our story had gone national. More women came forward, not just about Tom, but sharing similar stories of abuse hidden behind perfect social media posts and family reputations. Then came the bombshell. Karen's first daughter-in-law, Catherine, saw the interview and finally broke her silence. She'd been keeping quiet for 20 years, afraid of losing access to her children. Now, with her kids grown, She was ready to talk. Karen and her son Thomas, my ex-husband, did the same thing to me, she revealed in a follow-up interview. The public humiliation, the gaslighting, the control, it's a family pattern. The evidence kept mounting. Financial records showed how Tom and Karen had systematically taken control of my accounts after our engagement. Security footage from our apartment building showed Karen letting herself in whenever I was alone, something Tom had always denied happening. But the real turning point came when Karen's mask finally cracked completely. Confronted by reporters outside her country club, she exploded. "These girls!" she screamed, her face twisted with rage. "They're all the same. Weak, ungrateful, not good enough for my sons. I was trying to make them better." The video went viral instantly. Karen the Enabler started trending. The very thing Karen had valued most, her social standing, crumbled overnight. Her charity board positions, her prestigious club memberships, her meticulously crafted image, all of it was gone in the blink of an eye. Tom tried to do damage control, but it was too late. His firm placed him on leave pending an investigation. Former clients came forward with allegations of aggressive behavior and financial manipulation. The perfect family image they had worked so hard to project shattered completely. 6 months after what should have been my wedding day, I sat in the final divorce hearing. Tom didn't show up. His lawyer explained that he was in treatment. Karen wasn't there either. She'd reportedly moved to Florida to escape the growing harassment. In light of the evidence presented, the judge announced, "This court grants the divorce on the grounds of cruelty. The restraining order will remain permanent." Outside the courthouse, my support system was waiting for me. Lisa, Megan, Catherine, and dozens of other women who had become like family. We had formed a support group, meeting weekly to share stories and offer strength. "What now?" Lisa asked as we celebrated that evening. I looked around at these incredible women who had helped me find my voice. "Now we help others," I said. "This can't just be about us." We started a foundation, Wedding Day Warriors, to help women recognize and escape abusive relationships. Our first fundraiser raised enough money to help 20 women start fresh. The slap that was meant to break me had, instead, sparked a wave of change. 1 year to the day after my disastrous wedding, I stood on a different stage, this time giving a keynote speech at a domestic violence conference. The bruise had long faded, but the lessons hadn't. "Abuse doesn't always look like what we expect," I told the audience. "Sometimes it hides behind designer clothes and perfect family photos. Sometimes it comes with a smile and a mother-in-law's criticism. But here's what I've learned. The truth has power, and when we stand together, we're stronger than any abuser's lies." I eventually moved away from Chicago, starting fresh in Seattle. My marketing career flourished, and I even began dating again slowly, cautiously, but with hope instead of fear. As for Tom and Karen, last I heard they had both left Chicago as well. Their perfect facade had crumbled, leaving only the truth behind. Sometimes I think about that wedding day slap, the moment of public violence that exposed years of hidden abuse. But mostly I think about the women I've met since then. The ones who found their voice after hearing my story, the ones who realized they weren't crazy or oversensitive, the ones who got out in time. That's the thing about truth. Once it starts coming out, it can't be stopped. One story becomes many. One voice becomes a chorus, and somewhere out there, another woman is finding the strength to say, "Enough." Could Tom realize his mistakes and salvage the relationship? Or would he continue to be controlled by his mother's influence? As I sat there, feeling the weight of the situation, I realized something I hadn't fully acknowledged before. Tom wasn't the man I thought I had married. The man I had fallen in love with was overshadowed by his mother's manipulations and his own inability to stand up for me. This wasn't just about a slap, it was about control, manipulation, and the slow erosion of my identity. The slap wasn't the end. It was the beginning of my awakening. The things I had ignored, the subtle control, the isolation, the constant undermining, suddenly became clear. I had to make a choice. I could either stay in this toxic relationship, always battling for my own voice, or I could leave and take back the power I had unknowingly given away. The truth hit me hard. This wasn't just a fight between a mother and her daughter-in-law. This was a fight for my own dignity, my right to be seen and respected for who I truly was. And as I stood up from that couch, surrounded by the overwhelming support of my friends and family, I knew I wasn't going to let this nightmare define me. The next step was clear. I was ready to stand up, to fight not only for myself but for the countless women out there who had silently endured the same struggles. This was my chance to be part of something bigger, to expose the toxic cycle and make sure it stopped with me.